What's going on, everybody? It's going to look a little different tonight. My computer decided to have a Windows 10 update as I was logging on, and then my fan decided to just sound like it's going to take off into space, which I will now be ordering my new fan, even though I knew when I purchased the laptop that everyone was like, this is a really good laptop, but that right fan will go out. So just go ahead and buy it because for whatever reason, they didn't manufacture it very well and it will go out. I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. And then like a month into having that laptop, the right fan went out. And yeah, let's just say I've gone past my warranty where I could have gotten it for free and some reason decided to go the further route of making it harder and more expensive for myself. But anyway, we're here.
Procrastination.
Yeah, and we will do everything we can to make sure we get the show that we want to do, or at least ones that we schedule on time. And so we're here, but not on time.
Yeah, an hour.
Hopefully you've had a better sequence of events than I've had in the last 30 minutes.
You were sending me the audios of your computer making crazy noises, and I was dying and laughing. It sounded like it was going to explode.
It's still in the background making like a quack sound every 5 seconds, like a whack.
Well,
so I'm just like not going to deal with it for now. But
my headphones only work. My headphones only work for 1 year, so I can't hear the full.
So I will be on my phone. That's why the green screen's not active, and the audio might be a little odd. If you see me get up and run, that's probably because I don't want the laptop to take off into space, and I'm trying to ground it before it goes off my bed through my ceiling. But anyway, so we are doing this video. I tried as best I could, by the way, to crop myself in here. This is going to be the best it's going to work. But we will be pushed over to the left side, and we're going to have a video review today. If you're new, typically we don't do as many video reviews as we've been doing recently. We're going to get some more guests. I've reached out to a few people. I don't want to say who until I get any confirmation, but should be some really good guests. But we're going to do this one is actually a fan requested video from the last video we did. They left this in the comments, and so Cease, I'll take that and I'll shut up and let you kind of go into that before we start the video.
Yeah, I was just going to add that if anybody has videos they want us to review, we'll take a look at it. Going forward, I'm outside of the occasional phaser video or William and Craig. I don't know that we're going to do as many breakdowns of YouTube videos of that kind, of the ones that we've been doing recently, mostly because I just feel like it's almost too easy. Like it's just not that interesting.
And there's really no substance. Like it seems like the ones that we do, it's like we're waiting 12 minutes, and I'm like, well, where's the argument?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if they were at least posing something that we could really tackle, they would be different. But most of the time, it's just not saying anything of value until the last minute, and then it's a complete non sequitur. And it's like once we start becoming that over and over again, it's just not good. So. But this video was requested by someone who watches our videos, so I was curious to see what it was about. So let me see.
And we put part 1 for the title because I don't think we'll get through all of it. I know that this will be a shorter one. I will, at least for me, we'll continue on. Cease will continue on.
Yeah, I think I may stay on
8:45 on the stream. I have a call with a couple people in the ACA, and hopefully that's some good news. And then we will, we'll have Cease kind of take over from there.
So I'm gonna try. So usually Mike is the one that does all the tech background stuff. I don't really know how this stuff works too well, but I'm gonna try to see if I can get this to work. And you guys listening in, let me know if you can hear the audio well enough or not. So let's see.
For the day, and they'll be doing tech on here.
Yeah,
I don't think I can do it on my phone. So
all right, let's see how this goes. Share screen. Let's see. So can you guys hear this? Okay.
Yep, I can hear.
You can hear that fine?
Well, actually, go to the middle of the video again, or just click somewhere random so I can make sure I hear. Because I think the beginning of the video is really soft. Yeah, I hear absolutely nothing.
You don't hear anything.
I hear nothing. They hear it.
They do hear it.
I hear nothing. Then.
Okay, that's a problem.
That's not good.
Can you? And is there any way for you to hear it on other tab on your phone? I guess without headphones might be a problem. Can you see the?
Well, do this. Just close out of it and share it again, and make sure you check. I know you did, but check the mark for share audio.
Oh yeah, I'll try one more time.
When we went live, that StreamYard did a very StreamYard like thing.
So okay, 1 sec.
And Autumn's saying she doesn't hear it. Some people say they do, but she doesn't. So
so okay, hold on a sec.
Yeah, definitely click the share audio little check mark.
I thought I did, but
you probably did. I just think when we went live, something got messed up.
All right, let me try this again. This is crazy. We'll get the tech stuff in order one day.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The good thing about StreamYard is that whenever you if you ever just need to end the stream or something goes wrong, at least the end button's not too hard to find in the top right. But everything else is very hard to find for me.
All right, let's see if this works.
Yeah, I hear it.
Okay, cool. Does everybody else?
I think they should. We'll just keep it going and get there.
Sorry, what do you say?
They're good.
Okay. All right, why is this just sound? The genius of Islam.
Can you take a pill that will kill your soul? In the novel The Giver, people take a government-mandated pill to kill their emotions and desires. The pill also makes them colorblind and interferes with their memory. In the classic sci-fi novel Brave New World, authorities keep the population enslaved through a happiness-inducing pill called Soma. Published in 1886, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde tells the tale of a chemical serum that transforms the mild-mannered Dr. Jekyll into a murderous villain with no conscience.
Sorry, can I just say one thing already?
Yeah.
This already gives me vibes of like propaganda type of feel.
Sure.
Like
yeah.
Like I don't even know what's going on. Now, by the way, if I switch tabs, will that show on the video?
When you switch to your tab for StreamYard, you're still just gonna broadcast the YouTube, so you'll be good on that.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna click play again.
And a thirst for blood. In the postmodernist novel Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the main character transcends the limited nature of man to become the Ubermensch, the overman. He says, "You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes?" According to Nietzsche, the author, the overman makes himself into his own god by willing himself to become the standard of all value and meaning. He then declares, "God is dead." In all of these works, there's a fine line between cultivating human nature and destroying human nature. Human nature is an obstacle to be either buried or transformed or transcended, often with horrific consequences. But what is human nature? Humans are born with a heart, a brain, 2 eyes, 2 hands, but we're also born with certain inbuilt emotions, instincts, behaviors, desires, and intuitions. Why do you salivate when looking at a delicious meal? Why do you feel cleansed with water? Why are you repulsed by rotting flesh? Why do you want to hug and embrace loved ones? Are these things you learn from your culture? Not at all.
Yeah.
These are natural reactions that...
Yeah. So it seems arbitrary to pick those. Like, there's a lot of things that we do unanimously, expel gas in various ways when we eat meals and things. Seems arbitrary to kind of like single out these ones to cater. I mean, the biggest issue I had, I guess, is just when you say like we all have this disgust at rotting flesh or these other things. It's like, is that the case though? I mean, there are people that either doesn't bother them or they get some kind of weird satisfaction out of it. But I mean, so I don't know. The all thing was just a weird statement. Not that there's a big bone to pick there. I just was like, oh, weird.
Well, one thing I have an issue with already is his claim that, he said that these beliefs, are an attempt to make yourself into a god and change human nature, often to terrible consequences. Where is the argument, one, that these things lead to horrible consequences, and two, I would actually argue quite the opposite. It's religion and certain forms of theism that try to suppress human nature and tell us that things that we would otherwise embrace are sinful and problematic. So I think it's actually the other way around. But anything else?
No, I agree. I just was weird how I don't like hearing all when things are categorized in that way, because it's clearly never that way. But that's not a big gripe or really anything worth mentioning.
Right.
Just
all right, let's see what else this is.
All humans have. But beyond reactions and feelings, we also have natural intuitions. An intuition is a belief that you don't necessarily know you have, but how is that possible? How can you have beliefs that you are not consciously aware of? Imagine a little girl playing on a swing and a boy roughly pushes her off. What do you think about such an action? We all have a strong intuitive belief that the boy did something wrong. But where did that intuition come from? Did you have strong beliefs in your mind specifically about little boys pushing little girls off of swings? Probably not. Imagine looking at a table.
Sorry, this is weird. Like, obviously, we have intuitions, and we are aware of those intuitions, and we build belief systems off of those intuitions, secondary. And those intuitions, we project into the world and see whether or not they actually live up to and correspond to reality. Many of our intuitions turn out to be wrong, in fact. So I'm not sure where he's going with this.
Yeah, as if philosophy tells you anything, is that we all have vastly different intuition.
Yeah. Let's see.
On top of the table are many loose objects. Someone comes and violently moves the table. What do you expect to happen to all the loose objects? We all have a strong intuitive belief that they'll fly off. But where did that intuition come from? Did you have strong beliefs in your mind about how objects on a table behave when the table...
Wait a second.
Lisa?
That doesn't make a lot of sense. That's not an intuition.
For me.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I was saying the video kind of cut out for me on my end.
Oh, okay. I paused it for a second. What he just described about objects falling off a table, that's not intuitive. That's something that we have observed and learned. That's not something that is, I think, is inherent. That comes after. Yeah, that's induction. It's not intuition. I don't know what he means by this. Tell me if you can still hear it.
Table is moved. You might think that your expectation about the table is based on a lifetime of
Can you hear it okay?
Yep.
Experiences with gravity. But psychologists have done this experiment with infants. They show infants a table with objects, and then the table is suddenly removed, but the researchers have rigged the objects so they remain stationary, suspended in the air. The infants watching this react non-verbally with surprise and shock. Why? In another experiment, they show young children a boy stealing an apple. Then the boy walks on a bridge that collapses. They ask the children, "Why did the bridge collapse?" And the children overwhelmingly agree that it was because the boy stole the apple. These children come.
Yeah, okay, that's a different thing.
I'm a little confused on what the last one even was. I don't know what he's talking about with the boy going across a bridge and it collapsing.
Yeah.
What study was that? That's what I want to know.
Well, first of all, I would need to hear some background as to what these experiments actually were. But yeah, I mean, I understand kids can make strange and wrong connections between things and have wrong intuitions, like people and adults also do. As far as the babies looking surprised, what kind of how would you even know what is going through? First of all, babies always look surprised. Like anytime you do anything, they look wide-eyed. So I don't know how you would jump to the conclusion that therefore they have some intuition about objects on a table.
Yeah,
what the actual fuck is this?
Well, I don't know if the object permanence would be the right word, but when you just to my niece and I do this, like that might convince her I'm actually gone, even though I'm using part of my body to show that I'm even more so there. I'm doing something extra, to even.
I mean, so far, I will say this is the weirdest video we've played on the show so far.
Yeah, I guess it's harder for me to have response because I'm just confused by
as to what is happening.
Yeah, I was confused by the bridge one. I was like, is that a real study? Like they put kids on a dangerous. Maybe I just misheard that. But anyway, go on.
I want to see how this ends up being about atheism.
From a variety of religious and non-religious backgrounds, and none of them would even be able to articulate the belief that somehow morality can affect physical events like the collapse of a bridge. Nonetheless, they all share this intuition. It is said that there are no atheists in a foxhole. This is because in the heat of war, the atheist relies on his intuitions that God exists and can help him. So he calls out.
That's such garbage.
I am actually somebody that has been a victim of robbery in Atlanta where I had a gun shoved into my eye and cocked back, right? And it was part of a situation where I was just a bystander from somebody else that my friend. And so you would think at any time in my life where I'd shit myself and think that please God, it didn't happen to me. So I've never understood that mentality. I'm curious to whether he says we suppress it or if it's just innately there. I think that's where he's going, is that it's innately there, not that we suppress it. I don't know, but that is horseshit because it's like I'm someone that's never been grown up into that. I was introduced to the concept of God at a much later age, and then I've had the situation and I've never come out like that. But even if that was the case, the fact that people do irrational things, during a time of fear is pretty common. I mean, this is like hearing the rustle in a bush and running away even though there's nothing there. Well, that trait gets passed off because it's beneficial, as opposed to the thing that stays and finds out that it's a lion that eats it, right? So it's like,
yeah,
I've never clearly when we have these types of like agent causation or what we think might be agent causation, I mean, that's because that has always benefited pretty much any organism to assume the agent causation and run from it.
But also, he's cornering himself here because he's setting himself up for the argument that religious belief is just wishful thinking out of fear. But yeah. All right.
Flexibly. Similarly, for the atheist at sea, when the dark storm blows, tall waves batter his ship, and the watery grave beckons, the sailor cries out, "Oh God, save me." This is not because the atheist sailor consciously believed in God all along but kept it a secret. Rather, the belief in God is a deep human intuition that's not always conscious but can nonetheless manifest itself in extreme situations. People have hundreds and thousands of unconscious intuitions about everything. But is it true that all people are born with this intuition about the existence of God? Despite the oppressive power of secularism, a surprising 80 to 90% of all human beings on the planet today still believe in God, even if many don't believe in organized religion. Not only that,
So what?
So yeah, I was gonna say that's an ad populum fallacy. That has no bearing. I mean, the
Who?
the same argument can be made during the Miracle of Fatima to say that like 3 people there thought they were like, hey, I know what a perihelion is. That's what you guys are observing right now. That's what you're observing. And then you go around and say, well, 30,000 people think that it was Mary or the sun moving. And then you compare that to the 3 people that were right about it being a perihelion. And then they go, okay, well, 99.999% don't think it was perihelion. That had no basis on the fact that it was a perihelion, as opposed to an aberration. And yes, I will say fact, because we've witnessed these things in the sky, and it lines up precisely to what that is.
But also, he just stated it. He didn't provide any evidence for these claims. He's just saying we all have these intuitions. Where do you get that from? What, like, he's just making claims. He's not providing anything concrete here.
Yeah, people. I mean, I think the moral anti-realist that has an intuition that killing babies is wrong isn't going to actually come out. Let's say he's a non-cognitivist. He thinks that there's no truth in moral propositions or
right.
Truth claim, and so then now he thinks that's innately. He thinks by intuition it's wrong to kill babies, but he disagrees with any argument for moral realism or cognitivism. Right? He takes the opposite position. So
right.
Clearly, we have examples of people that have an intuition at which they disagree with where that intuition actually leads you, or the assumption you can make that it's innately there and therefore true.
Yeah, that's delusional.
There's more positions that's just one off the top of my head. There's more positions where someone might share an innate experience, but not actually hold the position that analogously would follow.
That it means the same thing, right? Let's see what else is.
But people across all developed cultures historically have a virtually identical concept of God.
What?
Yes, most.
What? Not remotely. I think. What is he talking about?
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I mean,
even within Christianity or Islam, you get sects that don't believe the same versions. It's all identical.
Yeah.
Religions are polytheistic, but except for a minority of small hunter and gatherer tribes, all civilizations, even the polytheistic ones, believed in a singular all-powerful God.
Well, that's not true.
Beyond the so-called Abrahamic faiths, even religions like Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism, ancient Greco-Roman religion, despite all their differences, nonetheless share this universal notion of one supreme being who has created and maintained the universe.
So if we set aside all the differences, then they're exactly the same, because they're categorically defined like that. It's like, well, if we look at animals and we just take all the differences of them, well, they're just animals, right? It's like, well, yeah, but you're not really saying anything when we get down to like defining what a kangaroo is versus an American mole rat, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like to strip away everything of substance and say, if we just strip away all the fur in the pouch, well, then they're animals. It's like, well, yeah.
Yeah, it is also fairly common knowledge that Roman culture and Greek culture did not believe in a singular, all-powerful God, as far as I know, at least.
Well, yeah, and antiquity is just wrong off of the polyistic perspective, I would assume, but that's not my bag.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, all right, let's see.
Universe. Justin Barrett, American psychologist, lists the primary characteristics of this universal notion of God. He's the all-knowing, all-powerful, supreme being responsible for the creation of the universe. He has a mind, has a will, is immortal. He controls the past, present, and future. He created the universe for a purpose and has set a moral order. He communicates with people and rewards or punishes them. But he doesn't have a body and is invisible. How is it possible that so many people from so many different parts of the globe and at different times in history not only independently came to the same conclusion about the existence of God, but also agree on the primary attributes of God?
First of all, it's not independently. Like generations influence generations.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with the agreed upon attributes, because a Muslim like himself isn't going to agree with a Christian who believes that a triune property is necessary or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's just saying things that are not
All
true.
that's being said is that if you take the parts that are similar and discard all the parts that are not, then they're the same, and that lends credits. Like, that doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter if you could say that there was a uniqueness element to yours, like Christians do with Jesus. That doesn't get you any aspect of bearing of truth in any way. I mean, there's no, that's independent from how you attest to what it is you're claiming.
But even if there was no difference, if somehow we all had the same exact intuition, so what? People have the same intuition about time, and we know from physics that that's incorrect. So even if there was no difference, as he's claiming, it wouldn't make any difference regardless. It wouldn't change the problem one iota.
Yeah, Titan writes something in there. Either way, it sounds like his nonsense archetype his archetype nonsense. That was kind of what I was thinking, was that he has this, like, it seems that he's propping up, at least in this part, this kind of like archetypal narrative. I know he's referring to Kefi in the comments, but unrelated to their conversation, it seems that, like, even this guy is looking at maybe archetypal narratives as being similar. That to me seems like the Jordan Peterson route of analysis.
Which is fine. But again, even that route is completely irrelevant. Like,
well,
okay.
I just think it's irrelevant to how you actually attest to what the claim is in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and what's strange about it? Like, yeah, we recognize our own limitations and imagine a being that supersedes them. So of course we're gonna make up a being that's immortal, timeless, and all the things that we fall short of. I mean, so what?
It would be impossible for such alignment to arise purely by chance.
It's not by chance, it's psychology.
The answer is human nature. Humans naturally are born with an intuitive God concept. Belief in God is ingrained in us as a species. It's a part of what makes us human, and this is the consensus in psychology and cognitive science.
Pause it there. Okay. Yeah, and this goes back to what I said earlier. Like, this is a biological feature that we can trace to how we, that in regards to, like, what traits would even be beneficial. And
yeah, that's crazy.
The fact that you would run away from something not in the bushes as opposed to something in the bushes that kills you is just inherently more beneficial, because it inherently is passed off as opposed to the other one that would not be, or at least that would contour the psychological perspective of whatever the conscious agent is. So of course you see that. You don't see that just transcended in primates. Like,
right.
That's not. I mean, that's down. That's down to level of perhaps microbes in terms of maybe stimuli and things that could be a false stimuli or something. I don't know. I don't go that far into it, but it just seems very peculiar. I can't say that word. I just realized. It seems very peculiar. I'm not even going to try anymore. I can say, like, all these other philosophy words that I have to figure out, but I can't say peculiar. Okay, anyway, we'll move on from that. We'll make that a shirt. What was I going to say? But yeah, no, it just seems to be like you're just kind of arbitrarily picking some human and then also under the presumption that we're different than other animals to kind of get you out of that box.
Right. Let's see what else.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try for you guys.
Paul Bloom, professor at Yale, writes that the concept of a supreme being is natural. Deborah Kellerman, professor of psychology, even goes so far as to say that children are born intuitive theists. What makes the God concept so naturally compelling to the human mind is that it is interconnected with other deep human emotions about the world. Causation is one example. From early childhood, we intuitively believe that nothing occurs without reason. Everything has a cause, and causes have their own causes, and so on in a causal chain. Anyone who's talked to children has experienced this firsthand. Your child asks you, "Why does it rain?" You reply, "Because the clouds release stored water."
I mean, it's ironic that he's talking about intuitions about cause and effect, because we know from science that those intuitions are wrong. So to use that as a supporting argument is just terrible.
Yeah. You also have the aspect of, if we get into the everything has a cause whole thing. One, I would take like Bertrand Russell's kind of position on a lot of like cosmological arguments, where they make the leap to say that it's just a fallacy of composition. But even if I grant that we could take a small part of things and assess the whole from just looking at the part, like even if that does work in this case, it seems like he's going to have to special plead at the end of it of why his necessary foundation doesn't have that, for which I guess he could call himself a foundationalist and just take like the position that it's a brute fact.
Right.
But it seems like you get into these kind of brute contingency issues and things like that, depending on where it goes. But the reason I mentioned that is it seems that everyone applies that logic until they get down to their foundation, and then it's just interesting how that works.
Right.
At least in a special pleading sense.
Let's see.
But why does that happen? Because the sun heats up water that turns it into steam that forms clouds. But why? Unless it's stopped, this questioning from children would continue indefinitely. We're born with this natural intuition to seek out ultimate causal ends. This intuition about causation supports the notion of a supreme being, which is why many religions independently produced cosmological arguments as proof for the existence of God. One ultimate cause is necessary.
What do you say?
Well, I said which is a non sequitur, because the conclusion doesn't actually. If it's the Kalam or like most cosmological arguments that I hear, like the conclusion isn't usually getting you to that a God exists. Like then they say, well, it's setting the foundation for it. I don't have a problem with that, but it is a non sequitur if you're not somehow like joining those two together in some way where it follows. Like you can't have a deductive premises where you say that, well, if you accept these, it necessarily follows the conclusion, but then abandon the deductive assessment so that there's no entailment of the God proposition, because then now you just have this gap that doesn't have the same, ironically, causal power that you're trying to argue for in the first place.
Two things. One, physics police says if people were satisfied with God did it as an answer, we'd never have discovered the water cycle. And also, a quick pushback from Jana here. C said cause and effect are wrong where? No, what I'm saying, again, I have my own issues with this idea. I don't like it, and I struggle with understanding it. But if you look back at the episodes we did with the black hole cosmologist that we had on here, from his perspective, he's saying that physics describes cause and effect as not fundamental, but as emergent features. So it's, in other words, it's in a sense how we understand cause and effect is an illusion. We can talk about cause and effect because it's useful to talk about things on that level. But if you want to get to a more fundamental understanding of reality, that seems to fade away. I will go back. I don't have, because of already we ended up starting super late because of tech issues. I don't have too much time to go into the details right now. But I would take a look back at those episodes where we had him on and he went into detail as to why it is that that perspective is far more ambiguous than we think it is. And yeah, I mean, like I understand what you're saying there. But yeah, I would just go back and look at those episodes and let me know what you think of what was said there.
Yeah, so I mean, you're pretty much, you take a position that it's not as black and white as what he would say. I mean, so
yeah, it's not as black and white. And
the hand to the child kind of perspective, whereas you're probably more going to look at a causal web of things at which we, our intuition is probably going to be, at odds with, clearly, on how we at least are structured.
But the thing is, even if we accepted the causal web, it still doesn't lead to God, regardless. Like that's still.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you can show that within cause and effect arguments or contingency arguments, depending, like the potential act arguments that people give for, like what the Aristotelian proof or Phaser's arguments. Like you have, even if it's actually better, I think, for someone to lay out, here's how cause and effect works, such like the potency to act or actualization remarks, because then you can see, for example, like when you look at phasers, you'll be able to see, like, okay, well, this premise actually doesn't work because we have something that, goes to actual without anything happening at all, i.e. existential inertia. So actually, like, I agree with you, but I do think it's the person that puts forth how the causal web works seems is always going to shoot themselves in the foot, given that it does seem to be kind of counterintuitive to the way our intuition operates.
Yeah,
does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And
yeah, like you're always gonna put yourself up there for a flaw because of how we just look at it in the first place. But
well, if theists can argue for a necessary metaphysical foundation, there's no reason why we can't do the same and just say that foundation is naturalism, that there is a necessary aspect to nature that is not contingent. If they can do it, so can we. It doesn't really work that way.
So okay, so for you, that gets into, like, probably reasons why you don't accept kind of black and white contingency.
Well, I think that actually, I mean, I think someone like T-Jump and someone like Alpine, I think you have expressed these ideas. Those are good arguments. Like I don't think that talking about a necessary foundation, just it being a natural one, is a bad argument. I think it's fine. I think it's if anything, I think it's a good way to show that the theists haven't done what they think they've done by using that approach. They've only given atheist ammo of a different kind. But
yeah,
to me,
it's more to show the kind of principle of parsimony that you're adding something else. You need to basically, we're holding hands up until you get to this new thing that
but to me, I don't even grant the initial premise. Like, I think we have no way of discerning what is necessary and what is contingent. We think we do because we can imagine things being different. That doesn't mean that things actually could have been different. So I'm not that convinced by the whole.
Yeah, and also I would like to comment that the cause and effect is the naturalist default position. No, there's not an agreed, like in physics or anything else. There's not this agreed upon variation. You might say that cause and effect exists, but to what that means or to how that causal web looks might be vastly different from someone else's. I mentioned kind of someone's take on.
Jenna, I share
premise 3 that, like, say nothing potential can actualize itself unless something actualizes its potential. Like, see, you have variations of way you could look at that where we would agree on cause and effect, but I would say that's not conducive to how I view cause and effect. So I would disagree with her assessment on that.
And also, cause and effect would not lead to the conclusion you want to. But Jenna, I share your frustration with the idea that it could be emergent because our basic experience so strongly makes us think otherwise. But I would say again, go back to those earlier episodes, because there is something there that that needs to be addressed. That it's not nearly as simple as we wish it was. we'll go back to the black hole cosmologist episode where he addresses causality, because it's not quite as obvious as we think it is. But I'm gonna
to explain the existence of the universe. Humans also have innate intuitions about order and design. From childhood, we innately believe objects around us are purposefully created. When children in studies are asked about the origins of natural things like plants, animals, mountains, they recognize that these things are not man-made, but were made for a purpose. For example, flowers were made to make the world beautiful. Puppies were made to play with children, and so on. How can something
that's the purpose of puppies, to play with children?
Okay. I don't even have anybody else can say what they want to say there. Like I feel like I'm playing basketball with like a first grader by responding to them.
Both be made for a purpose, but not be man-made? For children, the answer is obvious. God made it.
I want to see these studies where we ask kids who haven't been indoctrinated about causality, and they just say God did it. Like, this guy is not well.
Olivera Petrovich, Oxford researcher, tested Japanese and British children from ages 4 to 7 by showing them photos of natural objects and man-made objects. When the children were then asked questions about the origins of natural objects like mountains and animals, regardless of cultural or religious background, the children predominantly chose God as the answer.
Yeah, because that is what they were told. That's how they were brought up. I think you've been left stunned, haven't you?
Yeah, I am. I really am. I like Autumn. Is right there, but yeah, Cats. I was waiting for Cat's response on that. I saw in Japan? Question mark. That's funny.
Hold on one sec. My thing is freezing, so keep talking while I wait for it to unfreeze.
No, you're good. I'm actually gonna have to bounce out of here in about 5 or so minutes. But yeah, so a lot of this, at least if I could just speak to it, at least I wanted to kind of reserve some things, but it seems that all you can say, at least from his position, is to bundle up all these things and just say the only thing that can actually explain it is this post hoc assessment that I've come up with after the fact. Like, nothing that he did has any predictive power or explanatory power beyond just kind of this panacea of just saying, well, I can create something that explains this phenomena there and why we have intuition X over here. But I could equally just say, that stems from, I could assert anything from what's actually supported within evolutionary development and behavioral analysis of humans. But I could also just say the same thing he's saying and then remove like this conscious aspect of it and say that this is just a fundamental part of some singularity, natural singularity, just via reductio, right? Try to kind of compare it. And then, at the end of that theory, if we just compare our two theories, I've made less assumptions than he's had to make. And to me, right, that always, it's not to say mine works. It's just to try to say, look, we agree on everything else. Can you substantiate the mind or the intent part, that post hoc because from what I assess, it seems like the only way you're going to justify that or try to is by more post hoc rationalizations, as opposed to, well, if this is true, we should see why, right? And then in the future, we see why. It's a new thing, and we go, oh, wow, okay. Well, this predicted something that no other theory did. But right, it never seems to actually be the case. But it seems to just be this post hoc kind of assessment of I don't know how to, like the transcendental arguments, right? Like, I don't understand this. It seems to transcend. It must transcend through a mind, therefore God. It seems to be like this huge leap in logic.
Right. All right. Wait, did you? Are you heading out or?
No, I'll do one more little pause here.
Okay.
They did not give an agnostic answer like nobody knows their origins, or an incorrect answer like those things were made by people. They said that God was the creator. Petrovich called this result absolutely extraordinary because the Japanese Shinto religion doesn't include this idea of God creating anything. So, how do Japanese children get the idea that creation is in God's hands when their religion and culture has no such teaching? The researchers also asked the children to describe God. We might expect that the children would give different descriptions of God based on their religious upbringing, but surprisingly, that wasn't the case.
Sorry, my window keeps freezing.
You're fine. It looks fine on my end. Last thing I would say on that is, well, I'm an example of a person that wasn't grown up with any belief in God, and I was like introduced to the concept like pretty late on. I would say I remember, well, like my understanding of what people believe in as God, when someone was dropping me off and was telling me that I needed to be saved, or they asked me if I'd been saved, and I was like, I don't know, what does that mean? They like freaked out, right? I had an understanding of God through some kind of social understanding or through some kind of process. It's for me to say, or for them to say, what is God, and ask these people, well, clearly they have some idea of what it is in order to even give a definition. Otherwise, if you just said, what is Sadvaska, the person wouldn't have anything to tell you. They were like, I don't know what Sadvaska is, right? So for them to have this study seems weird to me, that it's like they all unanimously, basically said the same thing about God. It's like, well, clearly they have some prior knowledge. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to answer the question in the first place.
Yeah.
Where that line for me is that, if I had been asked at some point before that thing, I would have said, well, God is something that people believe in that created the universe. Whereas when I had the altercation with my friend, it was now like very specific to me that like, oh, like there's a book, Bible, and then once you would gather the information, you'd be like, okay, Jesus, right? Like triune God, that might become what you would think would be, intuition. But for me, there was a clear divide in my life to see what I thought people meant by God and what some people actually mean by God. So it seems weird to me that they wouldn't already have some kind of social understanding of it.
But also, I would want to see
they were told
the translation. Like he said that they just had this internal notion. Oh, okay. I mean, that already explains it. Like
a lot. I'm sitting there like, if you don't know what Savadskas is, and then you're like, well, and everybody says it's Savadskas is this, well, then clearly everybody's had some understanding of it. There's some knowledge of what it is. It seems weird.
I mean, that's just process of elimination at that point. But also, yeah, like I need to see how they're translating these notions from one culture to another. Right. He says. Right. So I'll say this: I'm a little concerned about playing this video on my own, mostly because a couple of times it's my browser has frozen and the video keeps playing on its own while I'm trying to pause it.
So you're gonna bow out with me?
No, I'll stay on. If people listening in wanna ask some questions, I can stay on for a bit and answer those. I mean, I don't know. I think that might be the more cautious approach here, and maybe next time we do a show we can finish this up. Because I don't want it to accidentally freeze up on me and then everything crash.
Yeah, no worries.
But also, I want to point out one thing, that we're halfway to this video right now, and he hasn't said one thing about atheism.
Yeah, or an actual deductive argument for his God or empirical evidence, but that's a whole separate thing. I wasn't expecting that it would just feel like
Right.
I'd lead in with that somewhere. Yeah, so why is Mike leaving? I have a call that I have to be on that's might be for a future show or something. I'm not sure to do, but it we thought we were gonna do the podcast about an hour earlier, but I got like an update on my computer and things just went sour really quickly. So we thought we'd be able to get both of them done, but I'm gonna back out, and Cease is still going to take questions or potentially do the video if it works for him.
All right.
But yeah, so I'm gonna get out of here. But yeah, if you the way to end it, by the way, is that end broadcast at the top, and then yeah, you see him brand all the video stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, first I played the thing in the brand, the video, the countdown, or the. Yeah, I think I know how to do this.
Yeah, and the broadcast button is just the
final thing.
Yeah, actually end it.
Okay, cool. Well, good luck with the call. Let me know what's said.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hopefully we get some cool news or something.
And thanks everyone for your patience with all the tech issues and stuff. We appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. All right. Whoops, I almost hit the end live button.
Oh god, that would have been all right, Mike.
You know what I can do? I can actually, I could do it like this. Check this out. I'm gonna give myself a wrestling exit music or something.
All right. So let me. How do I do this? There we go. Oh. When are we going to have another science show? Hopefully soon. We have some potential guests lined up. Hopefully my brother can come on again at some point soon. Yeah, hopefully not that long from now. I'll keep you guys posted, obviously. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I was going to continue the video, but I'm a little bit concerned with the lag and my computer not being in great shape. So if anyone has anything that you want to ask me before I end here, thanks again for everyone's patience. And please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And yeah. So any questions for me at all? But yeah, hopefully, I think we have a couple people who are interested in the near future to discuss idealism. We're going to have a video on Thomism coming up. I think we're going to review Phaser's argument for Thomism. I think Mike is finally about to be done the editing for the narration video. John asks, when are we going to discuss truth from a philosophical perspective? Hopefully soon. I think that would be an interesting conversation because there's so many different views on that, and I think that would be a fun conversation. Maybe I'll see if maybe we can do that this week. As far as my favorite philosopher, that's a good question. One of my main interests currently is something called phenomenology, which is the attempt to talk about subjective experience in objective terms. And one of the philosophers that I find the most interesting is someone named Merleau-Ponty. And he approaches the question of talking about consciousness and experience by looking at people with brain damage and see how their basic experience of the world is changed through that framework. And so it's an interesting kind of backwards way to sort of, how would I say this? Illuminate something objective about our collective experience. let's see. What other questions? I'm not familiar with perennial philosophy. That's something that I will look into. And if you want to email us and any kind of resources that you think I should take a look at, I'll definitely do that. Relativism, I think it just doesn't make sense. I'm in the context of morality, I'm a more realist. That's not to say there isn't context, but from my understanding, usually relativism just means that it's kind of a free-for-all with no kind of grounding, and I think that's ridiculous. Let's see what else. My most hated philosopher. That's hard to say. The thing is, with most of what I read, my mind is such that I tend to notice what I disagree with first. There's a lot there that, I still find value in reading even views that I disagree with. I don't know about a hated philosopher. Obviously I don't find much in common with religious theist philosophers. I wouldn't say that I necessarily hate them. I was disappointed in Sartre to some degree, which was surprising, being that he's an atheist, existentialist. But I found his writing to be unnecessarily confusing. I thought that his partner, Simone de Beauvoir, was actually quite more interesting than him. She never got the credit that I think her work deserved. Then Dennett, I have a real issue with his negation of qualia. I think that makes absolutely no sense to me. That he and also his view on free will, I think begs the question. I just don't find him to be that interesting. Yeah, Jordan Peterson. It's funny because Jordan Peterson has an issue with postmodern thought, and then becomes a complete postmodernist when it comes to the question of God. It's quite amazing to witness that complete shift. Let's see. Our email should be right on screen here. I believe it's axiomsontrial@gmail.com, but I'm not sure. axiomsontrial@gmail.com. I think I missed the question. Let me scroll back up. What about the implications of religion and gender performance? I'm not sure what those implications are. Could maybe let me know what you know about that. From my perspective, religion does a lot of harm, even implementing just really false notions of gender. And so I don't think that religion has been very, very beneficial as far as the gender question on any level. But any other questions? I'm sorry again that we didn't get to the whole video. I just didn't trust my computer there, how that was operating. StreamYard has a lot of issues too. Like sometimes playing a video will make everything freeze up. And since I don't have Mike to be there in case, my thing. Yeah, gender is binary in religion. Right. I don't buy into that binary. I think a lot of reasons to think that the gender is mostly a construction. There may be certain degrees to which sex influences or certain tendencies. And yeah, like Kat says, not all religions have that binary, but certainly I think the mainstream ones do. And yes, I agree that is definitely another place where it should be criticized. But, Cafe, the email is axiomsontrial@gmail.com. So it's the name of the show, the name of the podcast, @gmail.com. I also think that we have it up on the channel. Yeah, and it's Eastern religion that I find to actually have some value. Like if I was to be religious, I'd probably be a Buddhist. They also have their own share of uh, nonsense in there, but I think I missed some questions somehow. Yeah, maybe ask it again. But probably gonna close down here shortly. But we'll finish that video in the near future. We'll come up with a part 2 here. But I hope you guys are enjoying our content so far. I'm looking forward to bringing in more guests and deal with more interesting philosophical questions that we haven't gone down that route yet, and that's something that I'm particularly excited about. But yeah, I remember studying Buddha's story, many years ago when I was in getting my bachelor's. So it's been a little while, so I need to refresh my memory. But I actually find, generally in Buddhism, I find value to the approaches which don't try to numb ourselves out of emotions, but rather experience what we feel, accept what we feel, and and process that in a healthier way. And also, I think there are legitimate benefits to meditation and different meditative practices. Just not a lot of the metaphysics that people then want to, pretend are true. Like I'm not against the idea of spiritual experiences. I just don't think that there's anything supernatural or metaphysical or anything that points to God of any kind. It's something more about human nature that can have certain kinds of experiences. But any other questions you guys like me to answer before I head out? I'm not used to doing this by myself. But hopefully I've managed to keep you guys entertained for a little longer. Hello, Pluto. The first part of the episode was reviewing a video, I think by a Muslim, I think called Dark Truths About the Atheist Mind. We got through half of the video without him saying anything about the atheist mind yet. But Mike had to go because he had some prior engagement that he had to deal with. But we'll finish up the second part of that video at some point. I think it's a series too, because it said part 2. It was a video that was asked by an audience member to go through it. I want to get my brother back on, and definitely other people as well. The last few episodes have been just clip breakdowns, but we'll get guests back on soon, and hopefully some more theists and etc. That I would agree that we just felt definitely like propaganda. Yeah, I would love to get some philosophy of religion on. We're in the process of lining up some more guests and things like that. So yeah, well, I appreciate all you guys tuning in and leaving your comments and engaging in the chat. Is why we do this. So, but with that said, I'm probably gonna end the show. But thanks, guys, again, and we'll be back probably with the second part to this breakdown in the next couple of days, and more interesting things coming up in the future as well. So this was a shorter show today for all these different reasons, but we'll do something else soon. So thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you next time.